All right, I'm in Wisconsin, knee deep in snow, literally, and I'm doing my intro for my video I shot yesterday back in the lab in California about the coolest commercial I've seen in the longest time. For me, this commercial has everything. It has music, it has word, it has cinematography, it has phenomenal product placement and great messaging. I'm obsessed with it. It's the coolest commercial I've seen in the longest time, so much so I had to make a video about it. Check it out. What's up? It's James from Coolist. Today I'm in the lab and I'm talking about the coolest commercial I've seen in the longest time. I can't explicitly say it's the coolest commercial I've seen ever. That's a little too exclamatory for me, but it certainly is the coolest commercial I've seen in the longest time. Enough for me to make this video. So I'm going to get right into it. It's an auto commercial, which is a little ironic, and that's just the first part of irony in this video. But it's an auto commercial, and the reason it's ironic is because auto commercials seem to litter and pepper television. There's a lot of makes, there's a lot of different segments, a lot of different demographics, and cars have been around for a century now. So there's new makes, or I should say there are new models every single year. There are updates every single year. The auto industry is a mature one. And because it's mature, there's been a lot of ideas. Innovation is difficult, and creativity is a scarcity. Nonetheless, an auto manufacturer has captivated me with what I'm deeming the coolest commercial I've seen in the longest time. And I just want to give a little bit of background before I get into the commercial. I'm going to get into the commercial just in a second, just momentarily, but I want to get into some background. I heard it, and I didn't have a chance to see it, and my heart kind of felt a little blue about that because commercials have a very short lifespan. The cradle to grave is very quickly. Times change, products change, and basically attention spans change as well. So that's why you don't see a lot of long-standing commercials. And I wasn't sure if I would hear it again. And I say hear because I wasn't in front of the television. And it was the music and it were the words that really captivated me. I couldn't spatially predict what type of product it was for. Really clever commercials. You know, they're very conceptual, they're very spatial, and they, you know, if you're not looking right at it, they won't specifically say the brand. So I was sitting in the living room and it came on again and I was immediately captivated. And I was engaged and enthralled and excited, and all the adjectives and adverbs that you can think of belong to me. I was just completely magnetized by this. And the commercial has so much going for it. It has music. It has rhetoric or words. It has cinematography. It has great product placement. It has good acting, even though the guy doesn't say a word. It has so much going for it. So without further ado, I'm going to get into it. You probably aren't going to guess which one it is. If you have guessed it already, then you have phenomenal taste. We need to hang out, get a beer, talk, converse. I don't care. If you are a fan of this commercial, I'm a fan of you. Let's get right into it.
To be nobody but yourself in a world which is doing its best to make you everybody else means to fight the hardest battle which any human being can fight and never stop. Does this sound dismal? It isn't. It's the most wonderful life on earth. Yourself in a world which is doing its best to make you everybody else means to fight the hardest battle which any human being can fight and never stop. Does this sound dismal? It isn't. It's the most wonderful life on earth.
All right, I'm going to replay it a few more times and go over what this commercial has working for it. Here's the second part of irony that I foreshadowed earlier. It's a Volvo commercial. And you wouldn't think that, you know, some of the things I talked about, creativity, scarcity, uniqueness, the most captivating commercial ever, one would probably pin that conceptually and predict that would come from a Mercedes-Benz, a Ferrari, a Porsche. And here it's coming from Volvo. And the message from this Volvo commercial, which I'll go over in a little bit, is uniqueness, is differentiation, is positioning. And typically, these are not characteristics that you would identify with Volvo. Volvo is typically a pretty populist brand. It's a pretty general brand, okay? It's a pretty safe brand. It isn't very edgy. And for me, when I saw this commercial, I saw it was Volvo, I was just amazed. And there's a few reasons for that as well. There's so much to talk about this commercial. Let's watch it one more time.
To be nobody but yourself in a world which is doing its best to make you everybody else means to fight the hardest battle which any human being can fight and never stop. Does this sound dismal? It isn't. It's the most wonderful life on earth.
There's two things that captivated me right away. First was the sound. It's got a phenomenal beat to it. It has hints of electronica, synthesizer, and then it also has some classical components as well. Let's let it run.
To be nobody but yourself in a world which is doing its best to make you everybody else means to fight the hardest battle which any human being can fight and never stop. Does this sound dismal? It isn't. It's the most wonderful life on earth.
Phenomenal inflection point on the music. I'm not really sure if you would consider that a bass drop, but a phenomenal shift in the music that coincided with the word. Let's talk about the words real quick. The words, to me, were that of genius. There are once-in-a-lifetime people in every category and genre out there. And in terms of poetry, this is true. And in terms of spoken word and rhetoric, this is true. And I could tell that these words were just borrowed from somewhere. There's a few giveaways. Number one is the genius to them. And number two, you could just kind of tell that it was like an old school auditory type of speech. And it turns out it's from a poet called E.E. Cummings. Let's listen to E.E. Cummings one more time. Now let's just focus on the words.
To be nobody but yourself in a world which is doing its best to make you everybody else means to fight the hardest battle which any human being can fight and never stop. Does this sound dismal? It isn't. It's the most wonderful life on earth.
I would consider his rhetoric to be insightful, just brilliant. And it isn't really the complexity of the speech, but it's what he's saying. And that's really what speech is doing, is that it's communicating thoughts. He's not overcomplicating it, but it is just, it's a beautiful phrase. And it was a prepared speech he gave the students back in 1955. And somebody in the auto industry, and I'll get to that in a second, married that to this commercial, to this music. By the way, this electronic music, I'm going to call it electronic because I think it's mostly electronic. This electronic music was composed specifically for this commercial. If you scroll through the YouTube comments on Volvo's page for this commercial, people are clamoring for the artist. Some people think it's Iron Maiden. Some people think it's Avicii. Some people think it's the Chromatics. Some people think it is some old classical producer. Nobody can pinpoint it. And turns out it doesn't exist. It only exists in this 30-second spot. The people who are responsible for this commercial, I'm going to get to in a second, made it specifically for the cinematography. So it was to go along with E.E. Cummings' words. It was to go along with the product placement. It was to go along with all these scenes and tie it together. And I must say they did a phenomenal job at it. So we have great music. We have E.E. Cummings, a phenomenal poet, and now we're actually going to get into some aspects of the commercial. All right, so let's talk about the cinematography and specifically some of the symbolism that's in this commercial. It is, again, advertising and marketing creativity and execution and genius at its best. And the reason it is, by the way, and the reason this commercial is so powerful, first of all, I'll tell you why it's so powerful, is that the top advertising firms in the auto industry collaborated on this. It isn't just the number one firm in the auto industry or even the number 3 firm, which would be impressive. The top firms in the auto industry collaborated on this one commercial, and you can tell. And that's probably the reason why I'm making this video. And for anyone who stumbles across this and wants some insights into advertising and marketing and how to get resonance and how to get action, you need to pay attention to this commercial. Again, the theme is follow no one. And it starts with a guy in the crowd, and the entire crowd is going one way and he's going the other. So he is a contrarian. He's his own man. Okay, a lot of symbolism there. And he gets into a red colored car, and it could be any colored car, but if you ask what colors Ferrari make their cars, of course they can make them any color, but what color is Ferrari's color? It's red. Okay, red is one of the most powerful colors out there, and of course he gets into a red car. There's no other cars. It's the only car on the road. No other people either, only people in the background. So a lot of easy reference points for a consumer to identify what's going on in this advertisement. Okay, so he walks into his car. Great driving. Okay, it shows the car in action. It's not going over the features. It's not going over the bells and whistles. It shows just the car driving. And then it pans to a guy, an actor. He looks to be in his mid-30s, which is probably Volvo's target demographic. And he has a bit of a smirk on his face. So he went against the crowd. He got into his red car. And now it's just him. And he's in his car. And it's a silhouette. And he has this kind of a happy, content smirk on his face, like he's doing the right thing. And he gets out of the city. All right, so he gets out of the city into the mountains, which continues the theme of his contrarian views. He's his own man. He's going against the crowd. He's found himself isolated in some type of winding forest road. And the aerials are great. The aerials are great, but I'll get to that in a second. I want to continue with the theme. And he gets out and he parks. And again, he sees this population, this flock of birds above him, and it's a sea of birds. There must be over 1,000 of them. And he gets out, and it's so marvelous, he has to get out of the car and take a look at it. And what does he see? He sees this one bird emerge from the entire flock and go its own way and soars like an eagle above the rest of the flock. And again, he identifies with that. You're supposed to identify with him. It is genius at its best. And then it just shows him continuing on his journey. And then the road, of course, isn't straight. It's a winding road, which is kind of symbolic of life. So just so much messaging going on here. I don't want to get too over analytical with it, but there's actually too much messaging going on to even talk about it in this video. I could talk about it for probably an hour. There are different views of product placement and advertisements and marketing. Do you do it too much? Do you do it too little? When do you do it? This seems to have the perfect blend. It introduces shots of the car right away, and then it lets you identify with other things into the video so you don't get bored with it, because the human eye and the attention span is very short. And then it sequences it back in. You get shots of the interior. You have some aerials, some drone shots, which are perfectly done. You have some perfect side shots. It shows the interior. You see the car moving. You see it from different angles. You see it from the front. You see it from the back. You see it from an aerial. It lets you see the interior. Lets you see the fit and the fitment and the finish. And then lastly, I'll talk about the acting. And acting is a little oxymoronic here because there isn't a lot of it. The acting is great. Commercial actors are often overlooked. They're not on a silver screen, and they're not on sitcoms, or they're not on Netflix. And a lot of times people don't associate great acting with commercial actors, people who do ads. And I must say, for those of you not in the know, there's a very lucrative career for those that make it in product placement ads, whether it is in print or on video or on television. It takes a certain type of person because it's not about them. They are there to accentuate the product. And this person does a really, really good job. He gives great looks. His eyes go in the right way. He gives off great moods and expressions. Whoever cast him did a great job. So I'm going to play it one more time from start to finish. Maybe I'll play it twice. But the commercial to me is just moving. Someone comment below if I'm crazy or if they too like something about the video. Do you like the music? Do you like the spoken word? Do you like the product placement? Do you like the cinematography? Do you like the blend of it? Or am I crazy and you prefer Geico commercials? Somebody let me know if you parallel what I'm thinking here. And for those of you that do parallel with me, great minds think alike. This is one of the best commercials I've seen in a long time. Let's let it roll one more time.
To be nobody but yourself in a world which is doing its best to make you everybody else means to fight the hardest battle which any human being can fight and never stop. Does this sound dismal? It isn't. It's the most wonderful life on earth.